Hey everybody, this is going to be our last video in this unit, believe it or not. So for better for worse. All right, so it's going to be a short video, I promise. I think this will be our shortest one. We're going to talk about distance and the absolute value. Excuse me, I'm just going to give you guys a little introduction, and then we'll do some more practice with this and word problems next class. So, fill in the blank here. You got three options. Distance is always positive, negative, or zero. What do you think? Well, it's always positive. Okay. I want you to think about it's Monday Night Football. Anybody watching the Bears? I'm not, because I'm making this video. Okay. Bad joke, bad joke. Okay, so anyways, distance is always positive. If you're watching football and they gain some yards and they talk about how many distance they traveled, how much distance they traveled, do you ever hear them say that they traveled negative yards? They might say they lost some yards, they lost 5 yards, they lost 20 yards, but they never say they traveled negative 5 yards. At least not in any game I've ever watched. We always talk about distance in terms of being positive, right? Think about if you go on vacation. If you drive to Florida and you drive back, like, oh, I drove 500 miles there and negative 500 miles home. No, you always talk about distance being positive. You just drove 500 miles each way. Distance can be zero, but the big thing here is that distance is always going to be positive. Okay, so, and you might hear Charlotte crying here in a second, so just don't worry about it. Okay, so the absolute value of a number x is, anybody know? It is the distance the number, in this case x, so the distance the number, I'm going to say x, is from 0. Okay, absolute value of a number x is the distance a number is from 0. Okay, so what do I mean by this? Well, first of all, let's talk about what these absolute value symbols are. Convenient that we're talking about Monday Night Football because they kind of look like two field goals. Okay, so let's just take an example look at here. Let's say we want to look at the absolute value of 3, and then we're going to look at the absolute value of negative 3. Okay, well, picture a number line. And no, you're not going to do this every time. But let's talk about positive 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, how many spots away is 3 from 0? 1, 2, 3. Now, it doesn't matter we traveled to the left. Who cares? It's 3 spots away from 0, so the absolute value of 3 is 3. Let's talk about negative 3. 1, negative 2, negative 3. Okay, how far away is negative 3 from 0? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's also 3 spots away from 0. So your absolute value of a number, whether that number is positive or negative, you're taking the absolute value of, will always come out positive because we're talking about distance. And distance is always positive. Okay, so quick test here. What's the absolute value of 5 and the absolute value of negative 5? Hopefully, you roll your eyes. Well, don't roll your eyes. But hopefully you said they were both 5, right? Because they're both 5 spots from 0. Okay, so now that we got the idea of what absolute value is, we're going to do a couple basic simplifying examples before we get into equations. So remember when we talked about order of operations, I said I like to use GEMDIS. So the G stands for grouping symbols, and then you remember the rest. Okay, so I say exponents. I'm going to say multiplication and division are on the same line because what's our rule? Whatever's left to right, doesn't matter. And then adding and subtract, left to right. Okay, so the reason why I bring this up is that absolute value symbols, so these little field goal guys, these are, sorry guys, these are grouping symbols. Okay, so when you go to simplify something, it does not mean you take the absolute value first. It means you take care of what's inside of the grouping symbols. So we always take care of what's inside the grouping symbols first, just like if I was simplifying 5 plus grouping symbols 8 minus 3, we would take care of those grouping symbols first, right? We would do 8 minus 3, and then we would add it to the 5 to get 10. Okay, so here you always do what's inside the grouping symbols first and then actually evaluate that. So here we would do 8 minus 3, which is 5, and the absolute value of 5 is 5. Okay, on B, a lot of people again want to say, oh, I'm going to take the absolute value of each. Nope, first simplify what's inside. So what's 3 minus 8? Negative 5. Okay, well, the absolute value of negative 5, how many spots is it away from 0? 5 spots. Okay, go ahead and try C, this last one on your own. Okay, so what you should have had is negative 3 plus 5 is 2, and the absolute value of 2 is 2. So, what's the moral of the story? We're going to simplify inside the absolute value symbols first, and then take the absolute value. Cool. Okay. I'd ask if there were any questions, but hey, if there are any questions, send me an email, right? And then I'll know to talk about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's move into working with some equations. We got just a few to look at here, and then we'll call it a day. All right, so solving equations with absolute value. So our first one we're going to look at here is the absolute value of x equals 6. So I want you to think about what numbers could you take the absolute value of and get 6? Or in other words, what two numbers are 6 spots away from 0, either to the right or to the left? Those two numbers are 6 and negative 6. So x could equal 6, or x could equal negative 6. Okay, if you don't believe me, let's go ahead and check. Let's plug those each in. So what's the absolute value of 6? It's 6. So 6 equals 6. Great job. Okay, let's test our other one, because this is how we check our solutions, right? What's the absolute value of negative 6? Well, it's 6 spots away from 0, so 6 equals 6. There you go. So oftentimes, not always, but I'd say about 95, 98% of the times, you're going to have two solutions when you're solving absolute value equations. Because you have to remember, you're looking for the two sets of numbers that are whatever your absolute value is equal to, that many spots away from 0. So here we wanted two numbers 6 spots away from 0, 6 spots away from 0. Okay, now let's talk about this next one here. Solve the absolute value of x minus 3 equals 6. Now, hint, x is not 6 or negative 6. Why? We'll just plug them in. If you thought that's what it was, you would have, let me switch my pens here, absolute value of 6 minus 3 equals 6, and you'd have the absolute value of 3 equals 6. Not so much. Okay, so let's say here, and this will kind of give you a way to think about it. If it would let me erase, that would be great. Okay, so let's say in place of x minus 3, what if I replace my x minus 3 with a smiley face? What two numbers could that smiley face represent? if I'm saying the absolute value of smiley face equals 6? Well, smiley face could equal 6, or smiley face could equal -6, right? Because if you take the absolute value of 6, you get 6. We just said if you take the absolute value of -6, you get 6. Okay, well, as we all know, it's not a smiley face, as happy as that makes us all. Okay, it's actually an expression. So that whole expression must equal 6 or -6. So we set up the equations of x minus 3 equals 6 or x minus 3 equals -6, because again, we want our end result to be one of those to take the absolute value. Well, let's try it here. Okay, so solve each equation. We add 3. So here we get x is 9. Or if we add 3 here, we get x equals -3. How do we get 2 answers? Do we believe her? Well, how do we check our answers? Plug it in, plug it in. Yep, that's why I'm not in choir, folks. Okay, so absolute value, let's just test it real quick. Let me change my colors here. So it's going to be my check. Absolute value of 9 minus 3 equals 6. And then we're also supposed to have the absolute value of -3 minus 3 equals 6. All right, let's simplify each of these. Remember, the simplify first and then the absolute value. Well, 9 minus 3 is 6. And is the absolute value of 6, 6? Sure is. Okay, how about here? -3 minus 3, that's -6. Is the absolute value of -6, 6? Sure is. Okay, great work, guys. All right, I'm going to have you guys do 2 more practice problems. One of them's here already. I don't think I have another one on this page. Yeah. I'm going to have you do that one. And I want you to do... You know what? Let's make this fun. Absolute value of 2x minus 4 equals 3. Okay, go ahead and pause the video. And using what we just did in the last example, I'll leave it visible. I want you to go ahead and try to solve each of these and then check back with me here in a moment. All right, guys, so now you've tried it. Let's check how you did. All right, so the absolute value, you can even think of a smiley face again, has to equal 10. Okay, so that means whatever's in my absolute value has to equal 10, or what else could it be? -10, right? Because those are the 2 sets of things 10 spots away from 0. Okay, well, what is in my absolute value? Well, it's x plus 7. So x plus 7 has to equal 10, or it has to equal -10. Okay, let's go ahead and check our work. Okay, so finish solving. X equals 3, or x equals -17. Okay, one time I think it's helpful is to check is right now, just because we're still getting our brains wrapped around this absolute value thing. So let's just check these out. So then we would have the absolute value of 3 plus 7 equals 10. And we would have the absolute value of -17 plus 7 equals 10. Well, 3 plus 7 is 10. And the absolute value of 10 is 10. We're good to go. -17 plus 7 is -10. And the absolute value of -10 is 10. So 10 equals 10. We're good to go. Okay, last one. Hopefully you paused. Okay, again, let's pretend that this wasn't here. And it was some mystery number. Well, there's only 2 options that mystery number could be, right? To get an absolute value of 3. The only 2 numbers that are 3 spots away from 0 are 3 or -3. Okay, but we do know what's there. And be patient with me. Let me grab my eraser. We do know what's there. What was there, we said was, oh shoot, guys, what was it? 2x. You gotta remind me now. Oh man. Try to make my point. 2x minus 4. Ooh, I thought it was. Okay, so we knew it was 2x minus 4. Let me rewrite this here. So we have 2x minus 4 we said was equal to 3, or 2x minus 4 was equal to negative 3. Okay. There we go. Okay. So going back. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so then we're going to solve each equation. So we add 4 to each side here, and we get 2x equals 7. So x equals 7 halves. Or you add it here, and you get 2x equals 1. So x equals 1 half. Okay, if you want to check just to verify, hey, this is working out right, you can do 2 times 7 halves minus 4, and the absolute value should equal 3. And then 2 times 1 half minus 4, and the absolute value should equal 3. All right, let's check real quick. 2 times 7 halves is 7. 7 minus 4 is 3. Hey, the absolute value of 3 is 3. 2 times 1 half is 1. 1 minus 4 equals negative 3, but the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Okay, guys, nice work. All right, that concludes what we're going to do so far tonight for absolute value equations. I hope you guys enjoyed this last video. I hope it made some sense. If not, send me an email. Obviously, as you guys know, we're going to practice this more in class next time. Like I said earlier, we're going to do word problems and absolute value equations next time. All right? Don't forget to check out the Google form, and I hope you guys have a great night.